Ladies and gentlemen, there's something deeply human about the desire to be seen, to be understood. So we talk, we share, we post, we text. We tell people what's going on in our lives almost as a reflex. But have you ever noticed that the more you talk about what you're doing, the less you actually do? Sometimes silence isn't hiding, it's healing. And privacy isn't secrecy, it's protection. Let me walk you through 5 powerful truths that may convince you to stop telling people everything that's going on in your life. We live in a world where validation is currency, where likes, comments, and followers feel like proof of progress. But here's the truth. Validation addiction weakens your purpose. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, it eats away at the reason you began. You tell yourself you're being open, sharing your journey, but deep down, you're waiting for the dopamine hit. That surge of satisfaction when someone sees you and says, "Wow, you're incredible." It starts innocently. A student decides to take their health seriously. They've had enough of feeling sluggish, tired, stuck, so they commit to change. On the first day, they take a mirror selfie, tag it with day 1, and post it online. The feedback is immediate. Messages pour in. "So proud of you. You've got this." Inspiration. They feel empowered, fueled, like they're already becoming who they want to be. But then comes day 7. They didn't make it to the gym. Life got in the way. Discipline slipped. They feel guilty but not enough to admit it. So instead of showing up in the gym, they show up on the feed. Another photo. Another caption about dedication. Another round of applause. Validation becomes the new finish line. Not the sweat, not the consistency, not the quiet discipline, but the applause. What began as purpose shifts into performance. And performance, by its very nature, is unsustainable. Because performances aren't real. They're rehearsed, controlled, curated for approval. This isn't just about gym selfies, it's everywhere. People chasing dreams they don't believe in just because the crowd cheers. Students choosing majors for praise. Entrepreneurs building businesses based on what's trending, not what's needed. Leaders making decisions that look good on stage but feel hollow behind closed doors. The addiction to being seen, being liked, being admired, it's subtle. It doesn't announce itself. It disguises itself as ambition, as community, even as authenticity. But it's something else entirely. It's a trade. Trading integrity for attention, trading purpose for applause. We're not wired to thrive like that. Human beings are meant to grow quietly, like roots deepening under the soil before the flower ever blooms. Growth is invisible at first. It happens when no one is watching. In the early mornings, the late nights, the missed calls, the doubts you overcome for the camera, not for the likes, but because you know where you're headed. There's a power in silence that few understand. It's not about secrecy, it's about sacredness. There are seasons when your vision needs protection, when it's still fragile, when outside opinions can distort it, bend it, or worse, break it. The more voices you allow into your process, the easier it becomes to lose your own. You begin measuring your worth by external noise, not internal conviction. You stop asking, "Is this right for me?" and start asking, "Will they like this?" That's when the downward spiral begins. And here's the kicker most of the time, the people validating you don't even know you. Their approval is shallow, fleeting. Today they love you, tomorrow they scroll past. They aren't with you at 3 a.m. when doubt is loudest. They don't hold your hand through failure. They don't feel your heartbeat when you think you can't keep going. Real strength doesn't grow in public, it's forged in solitude. In the quiet moments when you choose discipline over comfort. When you shut down the noise and listen to your own inner compass. When you keep showing up not because someone is clapping, but because you believe in where you're going. We've glamorized visibility. We act as if being seen is the ultimate reward, but some of the most meaningful transformations happen in the shadows. They're not shared, not documented, not praised. They just happen. And because no one claps, we think they don't matter. But that's the point, they matter more. Because they're real, pure, free from the need to impress. Ask yourself honestly, if no one ever found out what you were doing, would you still do it? If you didn't get the amazing comments or the digital high fives, would your fire still burn? If the answer is no, then maybe your why isn't strong enough yet. Maybe you're chasing applause, not purpose. But when the answer is yes, when you can say, I'd still do this even if no one saw it, that's when you know you're on the right path. That's when your actions are aligned with something deeper than validation, something unshakable. That's when growth stops being a performance and starts being a transformation. It's okay to want encouragement. It's okay to share. But when sharing becomes the point, you lose the point. You don't have to announce every step. You don't have to prove you're changing. Just change quietly, steadily, relentlessly. The world will notice when it's time. Let your silence be your strength. Let your commitment be louder than your captions. Let your progress be so undeniable that it doesn't need to be broadcasted. You don't need applause to move forward. You just need clarity and courage. In a world that constantly shouts, learn to whisper to yourself. In a world that rewards visibility, choose vision. In a world obsessed with likes, learn to love the version of you that no one sees. That version, the one grinding in silence, pushing through resistance, building without recognition, that's the one who'll change your life, not the one posting about it, the one living it. Imagine you're building a house, your dream house. Every brick, every nail, every piece of wood is part of something deeply personal. You see it in your mind long before anyone else can. It's raw, incomplete, and messy. There are blueprints only you fully understand. There's scaffolding everywhere, tools scattered, paint half finished. And yet many of us, with hearts wide open and faith in the good of others, invite just anyone to walk through the construction site. We hand them hard hats and say, come see what I'm building. But not everyone who enters is there to admire the dream or encourage its creation. Some mock the dust. Some leave muddy footprints in your freshly poured cement. Some stand there silently, pretending to support you, all the while hoping the structure collapses just so they can say, I told you so. We do this with our lives, our goals, our pain, our transformation. We overshare. We seek validation before our vision has matured enough to stand on its own. We open the door to people who have no intention of helping us build, only to criticize, compare, or compete. This isn't about becoming isolated or guarded. It's about discernment. It's about knowing that your life, your story, is a sacred thing. And like anything sacred, it deserves to be protected, nurtured, and respected. The truth is, not everyone earns the right to a front row seat in your life. Not everyone should be allowed to witness the most vulnerable parts of your becoming. Just because someone is present doesn't mean they're safe. Just because someone is family doesn't mean they understand. Just because someone smiles doesn't mean they support you. Too often we confuse proximity with loyalty. We mistake familiarity for trustworthiness. But the reality is, some people only stick around to collect your secrets and watch your missteps. They stay close, not out of love, but out of curiosity, waiting for the moment your confidence falters so they can pounce, not to catch you, but to point fingers. You don't owe transparency to everyone. You don't owe your process to those who only want the product. And you definitely don't owe your wounds to those who have never learned to handle their own healing with care. There are people who will weaponize your vulnerability. They'll listen just long enough to use your words against you. They'll pretend to cheer for you while secretly feeding the wolves with your fears. It's a painful lesson to learn, but one of the most powerful. Your life is not an open theater for public critique. You are not obligated to let every person walk into the backstage of your transformation. We are so hungry to be seen, to be understood, to be validated, that we sometimes overlook the cost of premature exposure. Just like exposing a developing photograph to too much light ruins the image, exposing a developing life to too much scrutiny can distort the outcome. Protect your process. Honor the space between the seed and the bloom. Some things grow best in silence, in the dark, in privacy. You can be open-hearted and still have boundaries. You can be generous and still be selective. You can be kind and still say, this part of my journey is not for public viewing. When you start to change, when you start to grow, heal, chase something bigger, expect discomfort from those who are more committed to your old story than your new one. Some people don't want you to evolve because it forces them to confront their own stagnation. They liked you better when you were predictable, when your mess made them feel cleaner, when your silence made their noise feel louder. But this life is not about pleasing the crowd. It's about building something real, something lasting. And that requires keeping the right people close and the wrong people at a healthy distance. Think about the best concerts, the most powerful performances, the most sacred ceremonies, they all have one thing in common. Not everyone gets a front row seat. There's a reason for that. Front row seats are for those who invested, those who believe, those who show up early, stay late, and treat the experience with respect. In your life, those front row seats should be reserved for people who are invested in your growth, who cheer for you even when no one's watching, who speak truth with kindness, and who love you enough to challenge you without tearing you down. Letting go of people who don't deserve that front row isn't cruel, it's necessary. It's not about ego, it's about alignment. When you stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you, you free up energy to actually build the life you envision. When you stop performing for people who only came to see you fall, you begin to rise with authenticity and courage. You get to decide who gets access to your journey. You get to choose who hears the unpolished drafts of your dreams. You get to protect your peace without apology. Because you are building something sacred, your life, your purpose, your healing, your voice, it's all sacred, and sacred things are worth guarding. Sacred things are not tossed casually into crowds. They are revealed carefully, intentionally, to those who have proven themselves worthy of witnessing something that beautiful and that real. It's okay to share, but share wisely. Share with those who build, not those who break. Share with those who water your growth, not those who drain it. Share with those who challenge you out of love, not control. You are not a story for everyone's entertainment. You are not a project for others to fix. You are a masterpiece in motion, and only a few deserve the privilege of watching the process unfold. So ask yourself, who's sitting in the front row of your life? And more importantly, do they deserve to be there? If the answer is no, kindly show them to the exit, not in anger, but in wisdom. Not to punish, but to protect. Not to hurt them, but to honor you. Your life is too important to be a spectacle? Treat it like a sanctuary. Treat it like the house you're still building. Because one day, when the walls are painted and the foundation is solid and the roof is finally sealed, you'll want to open the door to people who cheered from outside the fence. The ones who respected the mess. The ones who never demanded a preview before it was ready. The ones who saw your worth even in the dust. We live in a world that rewards noise. We praise the loudest voices, celebrate the ones who speak the most confidently, and mistake the illusion of movement for progress. But there's a dangerous cost to this culture of over-talking. Because somewhere between our conversations and our coffee shop brainstorming sessions, we've confused talking about something with actually doing it. There's a term for this social reality. It's the sneaky part of our brain that tricks us into thinking we've made progress just because we spoke about our plans. You talk about your startup idea with your friends, and your heart races. You see their heads nod. You imagine headlines, success, recognition. But then days pass, weeks drift by, and nothing changes. The idea never leaves the coffee shop. Why? Because the brain already tasted the reward, and once it's satisfied, urgency disappears. The fire fades, and so do your dreams. We don't talk about this enough, because talking is easy, safe, comfortable. Action, on the other hand, is messy, unpredictable, full of friction. When you talk, people nod. When you act, people question. When you share ideas, you control the story. But when you take real steps, you lose control. You open the door to failure, rejection, and disappointment. And that's terrifying, so instead we choose the illusion of momentum. We stay in the planning phase forever, decorating our dreams with words instead of daring to build them with bricks. Every day, ideas die in conversations. Brilliant, life-changing concepts suffocate in group chats and late-night discussions, never given the breath of real effort. They are romanticized, praised, dreamed about, but never acted upon. We're too afraid to test them, to risk being wrong, to stumble. So we keep talking as if that alone will eventually push the dream into reality. It won't. Talking is a trailer. It's meant to tease the journey, not become the journey itself. You don't go to a movie theater and pay to see a trailer, you want the real thing. And the world is waiting for your real thing. But here's the truth. The world doesn't need more people who can pitch an idea over coffee. It needs people who are willing to burn the midnight oil to make it happen. It needs people who are willing to look foolish, to try and fail, and then try again. It needs builders, creators, founders, people who believe that the value of an idea is only revealed through execution. Imagine how different things would be if every conversation about a dream ended with one question: what's the next step? Not, what's your vision? or what's your 5-year plan? But what are you doing tomorrow to move this forward? That question alone filters out the talkers from the doers. Because doers always have an answer. Even if it's messy, even if it's small, even if it's uncertain, they're still moving. The danger isn't in sharing your ideas. The danger is in letting the applause of the conversation replace the hard work of the build. It's in mistaking likes for validation or praise for progress. That's the trap. And many never escape it. They become addicted to the feeling of being on the verge of something great. They live in a permanent state of potential. And potential unacted upon becomes regret. Regret often isn't about failure, it's about inaction. The book you never wrote, the business you never started, the life you never chased. And all because it felt easier to keep talking about it than to step into the arena and bleed for it. But here's the thing about the arena, it's brutal. But it's honest. You might get knocked down. Yes. But at least you'll know where you stand. At least you'll know you gave it everything. So many people live with this haunting feeling that something is missing, that they were meant for more, and often they were. But they mistook enthusiasm for commitment. They replaced movement with noise. And the years slip by. You don't need permission to start. You don't need a perfect plan. You need action. The smallest step is infinitely more powerful than the grandest idea left untouched. Because action brings clarity. You won't learn what works by talking about it. You learn by trying, failing, adjusting, and doing it all over again. Don't let your ideas become eulogies. Let them become experiences. Let them be built, tested, torn down, and rebuilt. Share your story after you've lived it not, while you're still writing the intro. Because there's power in completion, there's credibility in execution, and there's meaning in the scars you earn along the way. The ones who change the world aren't always the best speakers. They're the ones who quietly, consistently, relentlessly do the work. While others are still discussing, they're already building. While others are polishing their pitch, they're testing their prototype. They don't wait for the perfect moment, they create it. And you can too. So the next time you feel the urge to talk about your big idea, pause. Ask yourself, am I sharing this to inspire, or am I sharing it to replace the work I should be doing? Let your words be the spark, not the smoke. Let your actions be the proof, not just the promise. Because the world doesn't need another talker. It needs you to show up, to build, to try, to fail, to learn, and to keep going. That's how real change happens. That's how real dreams come alive. We live in a world where sharing has become second nature. We post our meals, our milestones, our heartbreaks, and our fears. We open the window to our souls, hoping someone will understand. Hoping someone will care. Somewhere along the way, we were taught that being vulnerable is the same as being authentic, that to be real, we must be raw. That to be human, we must bleed in front of an audience. But there is a quiet truth we often ignore. Oversharing doesn't always heal. Sometimes it wounds us deeper. The problem isn't vulnerability itself. Vulnerability is a gift. It builds bridges where walls once stood. But when we confuse vulnerability with exposure, we start tearing down boundaries that were meant to protect us. Not everything sacred should be laid bare. Not every emotion should be offered like an open wound to people who haven't earned the right to see it. We think we're fostering connection, but more often we're cultivating anxiety. Think back to a time you opened up to someone who really opened up. Maybe you were struggling, or celebrating, or unsure about your next move. You shared your truth with someone you thought would hold it gently. But instead, you were met with blank stares, with judgment, with dismissiveness, or worse, indifference. And afterward, you felt it, that weight in your chest, that subtle ache behind your ribs. That's not embarrassment. That's your inner self whispering, this wasn't safe. It's your intuition telling you that your story wasn't received with the reverence it deserved. We've glamorized transparency to the point of self-betrayal. We believe that to be relatable, we have to reveal that being open equals being admired. But the truth is, authenticity doesn't mean you have to tell everyone everything. It means being honest with yourself about who has earned access to your heart. It means knowing the difference between someone who listens to understand and someone who listens to respond. Not everyone deserves the unedited version of you. Connection is not created by quantity. You could spill your entire life story to 100 people and still feel alone. But one moment of real empathy, one genuine connection with someone who sees you, truly sees you, can be more healing than 1,000 conversations. Connection is not about how many people know your story. It's about who stands by you as your story unfolds. And sometimes the most powerful act of self-love is to pause, to wait, to keep certain pages of your life tucked close to your chest, not out of shame or secrecy, but out of respect for your own journey. You're not obligated to explain your pain before you've processed it. You're not required to narrate your healing while it's still happening. Healing isn't a performance. Growth isn't a public event. There's strength in solitude. There's clarity in quiet. In a world constantly asking for more of you, more details, more emotion, more excess, choose discernment. Choose intentionality. There's nothing inauthentic about privacy. There's nothing selfish about protecting your peace. Boundaries aren't walls to keep people out, they're gates to allow the right people in. Some will misunderstand your silence. That's okay. Some will demand explanations you're not ready to give. That's okay too. You're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to live a life that feels true to you. And sometimes that means holding your truth close until you find someone who can carry it with care. You are allowed to be a mystery. You are allowed to be a slow burn, not an open book. The people who deserve to know you deeply will never need to be convinced. They won't rush your story. They'll sit with you in the silence. They'll wait for your words. They'll earn your trust. And when you do choose to share, when you finally open that chapter, you'll feel it. Not the weight of regret, but the lightness of being understood. You'll feel seen, not judged, heard, not analyzed, supported, not fixed. That is what true connection feels like, and it is always worth the wait. So, if you find yourself hesitating before speaking your truth, listen to that hesitation. It might be wisdom in disguise. It might be your soul telling you to hold back, not out of fear, but out of love for yourself. Not every listener is a safe place. Not every conversation is meant for honesty. And not every moment is right for sharing. Oversharing doesn't make you strong. Protecting your energy does. Oversharing doesn't make you authentic. Knowing your worth does. We don't have to turn our lives into open diaries to prove that we're human. We just have to live them with courage, with purpose, and with boundaries that honor the sacredness of our story. You deserve to be known by people who cherish you. You deserve to be heard by those who respect your voice. You deserve to be loved without having to bleed for it. So choose carefully, speak gently. And remember, your story is yours. No one else gets to dictate how or when you tell it. Silence is misunderstood. We often equate it with weakness, with invisibility, with inaction. We grow up being taught that if we're not speaking, we're not leading. That if we're not sharing, we're not succeeding. That if we're not constantly updating the world, then maybe we're falling behind. But real power doesn't come from broadcasting. It comes from the quiet moments when no one is watching, when no one is clapping, and when you're simply doing the work. Think about a tree. The strongest ones don't make noise while they grow. They don't announce every inch they stretch upward. They just rise quietly, consistently, deeply rooted. Their power is built underground in a place no one sees. That's the part we forget. We want to be seen before we're strong enough to stand. But it's in the silence that we find the strength to grow roots. In this world of noise, where everyone is trying to be heard, there's an overlooked wisdom in keeping some things to ourselves, not because we're ashamed, not because we're uncertain, but because some things are sacred. The beginning of something meaningful, an idea, a dream, a new direction, deserves our full attention. And attention is diluted every time we share it prematurely with people who may not understand, or worse, who may discourage it. When you stop telling everyone what you're up to, you begin to listen differently. You start hearing your own voice without the echo of opinions bouncing back at you. You hear your instincts more clearly. You begin to trust the rhythm of your own steps. And in that silence, you find clarity. Clarity that can't be bought, can't be rushed, can't be crowdsourced. It's clarity that only comes from solitude, from sitting with your own thoughts long enough to distinguish the sound of your soul from the noise of the world. This doesn't mean you walk alone forever. It doesn't mean you don't let anyone in. It simply means you're intentional about when and how you do. Because not every battle needs announcing. You don't need to tell people you're healing. Heal. You don't need to tell people you're building. Build. You don't need to post every step, explain every decision, defend every dream. Some victories are more beautiful when they arrive unexpected without the pressure of an audience. That's not hiding, that's honoring the process. Look at J.K. Rowling. She was a single mother living on welfare when she wrote Harry Potter. She wasn't sending out daily motivational tweets. She wasn't snapping photos of coffee cups and scribbled pages. She was doing the work in silence, with discipline, with courage, with belief. And the world saw her only when it was ready, only when the work spoke for itself. That's the kind of strength we forget we have access to. The kind that's earned in the unseen hours, in the spaces between doubt and determination. There's something sacred about those early days, when the dream is fragile, the vision still blurry, and the steps uncertain. That's the chapter that defines everything, and it only requires one person to believe in it. You. You don't need applause to start. You don't need validation to continue. You don't need a million likes to know you're moving in the right direction. All you need is the courage to stay committed in the quiet. Silence isn't absence, it's presence. It's the deliberate decision to be here, now, with your purpose, not distracted by other voices, not deluded by other opinions, but focused, fully invested, fully alive. We think power comes from proving something, but real power often comes from restraint, from the ability to say, I don't need to prove this yet. I'll show them when I'm ready, not when I'm pressured. I'll reveal it when it's real, not when it's raw. And I'll walk into the room fully prepared, not half-built, hoping for approval. There's something deeply powerful about working in silence. Because when you do, you become unshakable. You stop chasing external affirmation, and you start becoming internally aligned. You're no longer building your dreams for applause. You're building them because they matter, because they're yours, because they come from a place that no one else can see or understand. And that's okay. They weren't meant to. Silence protects your dream from premature criticism. It shields you from people who can't see what you see. It gives you time to test, to learn, to fail quietly, and rise without spectacle. And it allows you to hold your vision with both hands, not because it's fragile, but because it's valuable. Sometimes we need to be reminded that we don't owe everyone a seat at our table. Not every friend, not every follower, not every family member needs to know what you're building. Because truthfully, not everyone can handle it. Not everyone can support it. And not everyone is meant to understand it. And that's not rejection, that's wisdom. Think of how many people stop chasing something extraordinary because they let someone ordinary talk them out of it. Not because it wasn't possible, but because they shared it too soon with the wrong audience and allowed doubt to settle where belief had just begun to grow. That's the cost of overexposure. And it's too high. So what if your next chapter is the one that changes everything and the only thing it requires right now is your silence, your commitment, your consistency, your belief, no announcements, no declarations, just the work. Maybe that's where transformation truly begins, not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. Not when everyone's cheering, but when you're still cheering for yourself. Not when it's easy, but when it's worth it. So keep building in silence.